This story is titled, Wife Cheated with Our Travel Guide on Our Honeymoon and Demanded Half of Everything in Our Divorce. But she didn't know. Everything I have is owned by my parents' business. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. What's up, everyone? I don't usually post personal stuff like this, but I feel like I'm going crazy, and I need to let it out. So here goes. My name's Josh, 25 male. I just got married a few months ago to who I thought was the love of my life, Emma, 24 female. Beautiful, smart, and funny. Mind you, she was. Now I'm just disgusted with anything that has to do with her. We'd been dating for about 3 years before tying the knot, and everything felt perfect. Emma and I seemed like one of those couples everyone looked at and thought, wow, they're so solid. When I first met Emma, I wasn't even looking for a relationship when we met. But she swept in, confident and sure of what she wanted. She said I was the kind of guy who treated women the way they deserved to be treated. And I made damn sure to live up to that. I gave her my time, my loyalty, and honestly, the world. Whether it was small gestures like flowers on random days or planning trips she always dreamed of, I wanted her to feel like the luckiest woman alive. I had a vital role in my family's logistics business, helping run operations and making sure everything stays on track. My parents, who own the company, have always been super supportive. They even let us live in one of their houses rent-free so we could save up and start building our life together. Our wedding was small, but beautiful, with close friends and family. Afterward, we left for what was supposed to be the honeymoon of our dreams. We went to this incredible island destination. We booked this all-inclusive package that covered everything. Resort stays, guided tours, and even a rental car for exploring. For the first week, it was everything I could have hoped for. We explored waterfalls, swam in lagoons, and had romantic dinners by the ocean. Emma was her usual bubbly self, constantly telling me how happy she was and how lucky she felt. I honestly thought we were making the kind of memories we'd talk about for the rest of our lives. But looking back, I realized there were little things that didn't quite add up. There were moments when she'd disappear for longer than expected, claiming she'd gone to check out the shops or needed a breather. I didn't think much of it at the time because, well, why would I? I trusted her completely. One day, I stayed back at the hotel to finalize some last-minute bookings for a boat trip we had planned. Emma said she wanted to explore the local market and left with a smile. She came back a few hours later, looking flushed and a little too happy. When I asked how the market was, she gushed about how authentic and fun it was, but didn't show me anything she'd bought. I thought it was a little weird, but brushed it off. We came back home after 2 weeks, and I felt like I was on top of the world. I was married to the woman of my dreams, and we had the perfect start to our life together. At least, that's what I thought. One night, about a week after we got back, I decided to go through the photos and videos from our trip. I wanted to put together a little slideshow as a surprise for Emma. While sorting through the files on my laptop, I came across footage from the GoPro I had set up in the rental car during our drives. Here's the thing. I decided to mount the GoPro in the car to capture the scenic drives and any candid moments between the two of us. It wasn't unusual for me to use it during trips, especially when the landscape was worth remembering. At first, I skimmed through the footage, expecting sweeping views of the coastline and maybe some light banter between Emma and me. But as I clicked on one of the files, something felt off. The timestamp showed it was recorded during one of the afternoons I had stayed back at the hotel to finalize some bookings. I hit play. Instead of capturing the scenic beauty outside the car, the GoPro had caught something else entirely. Emma wasn't alone. She was in the back seat with the travel guide we'd hired for our tours. They weren't talking. They weren't admiring the view. They were doing things I never thought I'd see. My heart started pounding as I tried to process what I was watching. I couldn't believe it. I started playing back everything in my mind. I scrolled through more footage and found additional videos, all showing the same pattern. Emma and the fucking guide in the car. During those moments, she'd told me she was running errands or getting some air. I was enraged. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. It was deliberate, premeditated, and during what was supposed to be one of the happiest times of our lives. This wasn't some one-off mistake. It was deliberate. She planned it, sneaking off whenever she thought I wouldn't notice. And the worst part? It was during our honeymoon, the time that's supposed to be the most special and sacred part of a marriage. I sat there in shock for what felt like hours, replaying the videos over and over. My hands were shaking, and my mind was racing. I couldn't believe the woman I'd just married. The woman I thought I knew better than anyone was capable of this. That night, I didn't confront her. She was in the bedroom, asleep, like nothing had happened, and I just sat on the couch. I needed time to think. What Emma didn't realize, and what worked entirely in my favor, was that she had no clue how our financial setup worked. She assumed the house we lived in, the car she drove, and even the credit cards she swiped without a second thought were all part of our assets. In truth, they weren't. The house, owned by my parents. The car, registered under the family business. The credit card, connected to accounts under my father's name. Emma thought she was marrying into wealth and security, but I had made sure to keep my own assets locked down tight. The only money purely under my name was the $20,000 I'd saved up from freelancing during college. I never flaunted it because I didn't need to. I knew the real power wasn't in showing off. It was in keeping everything where it couldn't be touched. She was playing a game, but the board and all the pieces belonged to me. I realized I had a lot to figure out. Confronting her wasn't going to be enough. I needed to protect myself too. So the first thing I did was back up all the videos. I saved them on multiple drives and made sure they were stored securely. The last thing I wanted was for her to somehow delete the evidence. The next day, I reached out to a lawyer my dad trusted. I didn't tell my parents what was going on just yet. I wasn't ready to drag them into this mess. The lawyer was incredible. I explained everything, and he reassured me that she doesn't have a leg to stand on, he said. Since everything significant, the house, the car, even the credit cards, was tied to my dad and the family business, Emma couldn't touch a dime of it. He said that if she tried to demand half of our assets in a divorce, she'd be in for a rude awakening. That gave me a little bit of peace, but I still had to face her. I needed to hear what she had to say, even though I knew it wouldn't change anything. That night, I acted like nothing was wrong. I sat with her on the couch and casually brought up the honeymoon. Hey, what was your favorite part of the trip? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She grinned like she didn't have a single worry in the world. Oh, all of it! The beaches were stunning. The food was amazing. I nodded, forcing a small smile. I'm glad you think so, I said, keeping my voice even. You really seemed happy out there. She grinned even wider. Of course I was. How could I not be with everything you did for me? Then she added, as if it were nothing. Oh, and the guide. He was so nice, wasn't he? I clenched my jaw but kept my tone casual. Yeah, he seemed really useful, I said, pulling out my phone. Speaking of, I found some videos from the trip. Thought you'd want to relive the memories. Of course, she said, still smiling, completely clueless. I cast my phone to the TV so she could enjoy her disgrace in full HD. If she was going to lie, she might as well see herself in crystal clear clarity while doing it. That smile? Gone the second I hit play. Her face drained of color as she stared at the screen. She looked like she'd been hit by a bus. Go ahead, Emma, I said, leaning back. Explain this. I'll wait. She started stammering, her voice shaking. I don't know what that is. This isn't what it looks like. I raised an eyebrow, not bothering to hide my smirk. Oh, so it's not you getting cozy with our nice guide in the backseat of the rental? Damn, my mistake. Maybe I need glasses. Listen, I can explain. I cut her off, my voice cold. Explain? Sure, I'd love to hear how banging the guide on our honeymoon was just a big misunderstanding. Go ahead, I'm all ears. She fumbled for words, pulling out the usual bullshit. It was a mistake. I wasn't thinking. It didn't mean anything. I laughed, shaking my head. Didn't mean anything? Well, good news, Emma. It means even less to me. Save your breath. We're done. I watched her panic, knowing full well this was just the beginning. If she thought she could talk her way out of this, she was about to learn the hard way who she was dealing with. After that night, everything changed. Emma didn't admit to anything right away. At first, she sat there in stunned silence, staring at the paused screen on the TV like it might disappear if she just blinked hard enough. When she finally spoke, her voice was shaky and desperate. Josh, please, it's not what it looks like, she said. I couldn't believe she was trying to deny it. Emma, don't play with me. It's exactly what it looks like. There's no way to explain what you were doing in our car during our honeymoon. That's when the excuses started pouring out. She claimed it was a mistake, that it only happened once, that she was drunk, that he pressured her. It was like she was throwing anything at the wall to see what would stick. Obviously, I wasn't having any of it. Emma, there's more than one video. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't just one time. You made a choice. Over and over again. Her tears came fast. She started sobbing, saying she didn't mean to hurt me. that she loved me, that it didn't mean anything, but I couldn't even look at her. I felt like my chest was being crushed every time she opened her mouth. I stood up. You didn't respect or appreciate what I gave you. If you did, you wouldn't have done this. I want a divorce. At that, her tears dried up almost instantly. You can't just throw me away like this, she shouted. I gave up everything to be with you. You owe me. I couldn't believe her audacity. Owe you? Emma, everything we have isn't written in my name. The house, the car, the credit cards, they're all in my dad's name. The only thing in my name is my savings account. And guess what? You're not getting a single cent of it. Her face twisted with rage. You've been lying to me this whole time. You said we were building a life together, and now you're saying none of it's actually yours? I smirked, leaning back. Oh, it's mine, Emma. I built it. I earned it. But it's all under my dad's name to protect it from situations like this. Funny how that worked out, huh? I thought we were building something real together, too. But clearly, you had other priorities, like the backseat of a rental car. She stormed out of the room, slamming the door. I just stood there for a while, trying to process everything. I'd married this woman. I'd trusted her with my future, and she betrayed me in the worst way possible. The next morning, I woke up to an empty house. Emma had left early, probably to avoid facing me again. I didn't really care where she went. I had bigger things to deal with. First, I called my lawyer. The videos were my safety net, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything that could come back to bite me later. He reassured me that since everything was under my dad's name, Emma didn't have any legal claim to it. That was a relief, but I still felt like I needed to protect myself further. I spent the next few days backing up the videos to multiple secure locations and printing out copies of all our financial records. I wanted to be prepared for anything. Emma, meanwhile, acted like nothing was wrong. She'd come home late, barely say 2 words to me, and then disappear into the bedroom. It was like she was waiting for me to back down, to forgive her. But there was no forgiving this. A few days later, Emma tried to talk to me, thinking she could smooth things over. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table, her eyes red and puffy like she'd been crying. Josh, can we just talk about this? She asked, her voice soft. There's nothing to talk about, I said. I want a divorce. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You can't just give up on us like this. We're married. We made vows. I couldn't help but laugh at that. Vows? Are you serious right now? You broke those vows the moment you decided to sleep with someone else. And not just anyone, a travel guide, on our honeymoon. She started crying again, but I was done feeling sorry for her. Josh, please. It was a mistake. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was scared. I thought you didn't love me anymore. That last part hit me. You thought I didn't love you? Emma, I planned that entire honeymoon to make you happy. I trusted you completely. And this is how you repay me? She didn't have an answer for that. Instead, she switched tactics again. Fine. If that's how you feel, then I'll fight you in court. I deserve half of everything. That's when I finally lost it. I slammed my hand down on the table, making her jump. You won't get a damn thing, Emma. The house? Not yours. The car? Not yours. Even the credit card you've been using like it's your personal piggy bank? That's not yours either. It's all under my dad's name, locked down tight, so people like you can't touch it. She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. You're lying, she said weakly. I'm not. You think you're entitled to something, but you're not. You don't own a single thing here, Emma. And after what you've done, you'll be lucky to walk away with anything at all. After that, things escalated quickly. Emma started texting me nonstop while I was at work, swinging between begging for forgiveness and threatening to ruin me. One message read, "If you think you can toss me aside like trash, you're wrong. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you are." I forwarded every single message to my lawyer. He told me they'd be useful if she tried to file some bogus claim in court. I didn't respond to her texts, and I avoided her as much as possible. Then one day, she showed up at my office unannounced. I was in the middle of a meeting with my dad and some of the senior staff when the receptionist called to let me know she was there. She's causing a scene, the receptionist said nervously. I stepped outside and saw Emma standing in the lobby, yelling at the receptionist and demanding to see me. You think you can lock me out of my house? She screamed when she saw me. I kept my voice calm. It's not your house, Emma. Now leave before I call security. She glared at me, her face red with anger. You'll regret this, Josh. You'll regret everything. But I didn't regret a thing. If anything, I felt relieved. I was finally taking control of a situation I never should have been in. That night, I sat down with my parents and told them everything. My dad, who's usually pretty calm, was furious. She thought she could take advantage of us, do you? Not on my watch, he said. My mom, on the other hand, was heartbroken. You deserve so much better than this, Josh, she said, hugging me tightly. At least I had my parents' support, a solid legal team, and a plan. Emma thought she could manipulate me into giving her what she wanted, but she was about to learn the hard way that I wasn't as naive as she thought. After that last blow-up at my office, things with Emma went from bad to worse. She stopped trying to fake any kind of remorse and leaned fully into anger and entitlement. It was like she didn't care about keeping up appearances anymore. I guess she thought she could intimidate me into backing down, but I wasn't having it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. My lawyer was a lifesaver, walking me through every step of the divorce process and making sure I had all the evidence lined up. The videos, the financial records, and even the text messages she'd been sending me. All of it was compiled into a rock-solid case. Meanwhile, Emma was busy trying to turn people against me. She called mutual friends, claiming I was abusive and controlling. She spun this sob story about how I'd blindsided her and left her with nothing. At first, a few people reached out to ask what was going on, but as soon as I told them the truth, most of them backed off. Some of them even admitted they'd heard Emma bragging during the honeymoon about how free she felt with the guide. In hindsight, it was obvious what that meant, but back then, no one had connected the dots. One of our mutual friends, Sarah, even sent me screenshots of messages Emma had sent her. In them, Emma was ranting about how unfair it was that I lied about our finances and how she deserved compensation for everything she sacrificed. It was honestly pathetic. About a month into the mess, Emma filed for divorce. Her lawyer submitted a list of demands that made me laugh out loud when I saw them. She wanted half of the house's value, half of the marital assets, and alimony, because she claimed I'd financially controlled her. I forwarded the list to my lawyer, who responded with one word: laughable. When we had our first court hearing, Emma showed up looking smug. She was dressed to the nines, like she thought she was walking into some kind of victory parade. Meanwhile, I was calm. My lawyer had prepped me well, and I knew exactly how this was going to go. The judge asked her lawyer to explain her demands. He went on about how Emma had been emotionally abused and how I'd hidden assets to prevent her from getting her fair share. Then it was our turn. My lawyer laid it all out like clockwork. The financial records proving the house, car, and credit cards weren't technically mine, but tied to my dad and the family business. The videos from the honeymoon exposing her infidelity in crystal clear detail, and the string of text messages where she flip-flopped between threats and desperate pleas. The real nail in the coffin was my dad's testimony. Calm and collected, he broke everything down with precision. The house Emma refers to is part of my personal real estate portfolio, he explained. The car she drives is owned by our family business. My son plays a vital role in the company, overseeing key operations and helping drive its growth. However, all assets, both personal and business, remain under my ownership as part of our long-term strategy. He paused for a moment, his voice steady but firm. While my son is deeply involved in running the business, he doesn't formally own any significant assets at this stage. My wife and I have ensured he's supported as he continues to build his future. Everything Emma claims is theirs. The house, the car, even the credit cards, is in fact under my name or tied directly to the business. My dad's words were clear, authoritative, and left no room for argument. Emma's entire narrative crumbled right there in the courtroom. Emma's lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. She, on the other hand, looked furious. I could feel her glaring at me from across the courtroom, but I didn't care. After the hearing, Emma cornered me in the hallway. "You think you've won, don't you?" she hissed. "But this isn't over. You've ruined my life, Josh. I'll make you pay for this." I stared at her, completely unfazed. "You ruined your own life, Emma. And if you think you can intimidate me, you're wrong. This is over." I walked away, leaving her standing there, fuming. Back at home, I felt a sense of relief for the first time in weeks. My parents were waiting for me, and as soon as I walked in the door, my mom hugged me tightly. "You did the right thing," she said. "We're so proud of you for standing your ground." That night, I sat down with them and we went over the next steps. My dad even made some changes to the business structure to ensure that no one, not Emma or anyone else, could ever try to claim what wasn't theirs. In the days that followed, Emma's behavior became even more desperate. She started reaching out to people she hadn't spoken to in years, trying to spin her narrative. She even showed up at my parents' house one evening, banging on the door and demanding to be let in. My dad called security, and she was escorted off the property. At that point, it was clear that she wasn't going to give up without a fight. But I wasn't worried anymore. I had the evidence, the support of my family, and the truth on my side. The second court date felt like the final showdown. By now, Emma's story had completely unraveled. She'd spent weeks trying to spin herself as the victim to friends, family, and even in court filings. But her narrative didn't hold up against the evidence we brought to the table. Her lawyer started by rehashing the same arguments from the first hearing, claiming emotional abuse, financial control, and her entitlement to half of the marital assets. It was the same nonsense, but this time, it sounded even weaker. When it was my lawyer's turn, he didn't hold back. He went through every point of her claim, tearing it apart with cold, hard facts. When the decision came, it was swift and decisive. Emma's claims were denied outright. She wasn't entitled to any part of the house, the car, or the family business. The judge didn't award her alimony either, citing her infidelity as the primary reason for the breakdown of the marriage. Sitting there, hearing the judge deliver the ruling, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was finally over, or so I thought. In the days that followed, word of the court ruling spread quickly. Friends and family who'd been on the fence about the situation started reaching out to me, apologizing for believing Emma's lies. Even some of her own family members contacted me to apologize. Her parents were particularly embarrassed. Her dad called me and said, "Josh, I had no idea what was really going on. If we'd known, we never would have supported her in this." I appreciated the sentiment, but their apologies didn't undo the damage Emma had tried to cause. Still, it felt good to know that the truth was finally out there. Emma, meanwhile, was unraveling. She tried to save face by doubling down on her lies, telling anyone who'd listened that I'd manipulated the court and that I was a terrible husband, but no one was buying it anymore. A couple we'd befriended on the honeymoon even came forward with their own videos. They'd seen Emma flirting with the guide and had recorded some of her behavior, thinking it was odd at the time. When the rumors about the divorce reached them, they didn't hesitate to share what they had. This led to the travel guide getting fired from his agency. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who'd complained about him. Losing his job was the least he deserved, but it still felt like a small victory. Emma made one last attempt to worm her way back into my life a few months later. She showed up at my office again, looking disheveled and desperate. "Josh," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I've lost everything. I don't know where else to go." I didn't even let her finish. "You made your choices," I said coldly. "Now live with them." I called security and had her escorted out. Watching her walk away, I felt no guilt. She had brought this on herself. By this point, I was ready to move on. The nightmare was over, and I could finally focus on rebuilding my life. My parents encouraged me to move back home temporarily, but I decided against it. I needed my own space, my own independence. Emma thought she could play me, manipulate me, and walk away with what wasn't hers. But in the end, her betrayal caught up with her. Justice was served, and I came out stronger for it. Life after the divorce was strange at first. I thought I'd feel immediate relief, like some weight had been lifted off my shoulders, but instead, I felt empty. Emma, for her part, wasn't going quietly. She kept popping up in unexpected places, trying to make herself seem like the victim in all of this. At first, it was small things, like vague posts on social media about betrayal and starting over. Then she started reaching out to people who had nothing to do with our marriage, trying to drag them into the mess. Lately, her family, once her biggest supporters, began pulling away too. I found out later that her parents had confronted her about the videos. Apparently, they'd heard about them through the grapevine, and when they saw the evidence, they were horrified. Her dad even reached out to me. "Josh, I don't know what to say," he told me over the phone. "We believed her lies, and we're sorry for that. If we'd known the truth sooner, we would have handled things differently." I appreciated the apology, but it didn't change the fact that they'd blindly supported her while she tried to destroy my life. Still, I wasn't bitter. I was just glad the truth was finally catching up to her. The last time I saw Emma, she was straight up stalking me outside my gym late one night. I'd stayed late for a workout, trying to clear my head, and as I walked out to the parking lot, I noticed someone just hanging around by the cars. At first, I thought it was some random person on their phone, but nope, it was her. She was leaning against her car, arms crossed, just waiting. "Josh!" she called out as soon as she saw me, her voice all fake calm. "So, this is how it's gonna be? You're really just gonna ignore me?" I stopped in my tracks, keeping my distance. "What the hell are you doing here, Emma?" She tilted her head and smirked. "Just wanted to check on you. You've been avoiding me, and I've been concerned." I laughed, shaking my head. "Concerned? You shouldn't even know where I am. Go home, Emma." Her face changed, and her tone got weird, almost threatening. "You think you can just cut me off like that? You think you've won? This isn't over, Josh. I'll always know where to find you. That hit differently. The way she said it. It wasn't angry. It was just off. I didn't say another word. I just unlocked my car, got in, and drove off, watching my mirrors the whole way home. When I got back, I double-checked all the locks on the doors, and then I called my lawyer. She's following me, I said. This shit has to stop. What can we do? The next day, he sent out a formal cease and desist letter. It was basically a big back-off warning with the promise of legal action if she kept it up. And just like that, she went quiet. No texts, no surprise appearances, nothing. It was a relief, but honestly, it still felt a little too quiet, like she was waiting for the right moment. For now, though, I'll take the peace. And yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for sticking with me through this mess. It's been a wild ride, but at the end of the day, I'm just grateful the truth came out, and I can finally move forward. What do you guys think? Did I handle this the right way? Or is there something you would have done differently?